Hello everyone and welcome back to the Spanish Sling, a podcast where we try to bridge the gap between the Spanish and Singaporean companies and encourage economic relations between them. Today we're going to explore the creative and vast selector of the architectural sector and the interior design. This is why we welcome today to the Spanish Sling Álvaro González, VP Asia Pacific in Cosentino. So Álvaro, thank you very much for joining this initiative.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
And in the first part, so you know that this is a two-part interview. In the first part of the interview, we're going to focus on the architectural sector in Singapore, as you're an expert. So first of all, can you give us an overview of the current situation of the sector in Singapore?
Yeah, I think it's a very healthy situation right now. If you go and you visit any neighborhood, you will see a lot of cranes, a lot of workers. There is a lot of things going on here in Singapore. Yeah. Big investment of the government, that's true. So you see that we're building a lot of new train stations, subway stations, new hospitals, schools, so a lot of investment from the government. And there is another situation that is a bit special here in Singapore, is that after the COVID situation, a lot of immigration has come to Singapore. So people coming from Hong Kong, India, China. So there is a lot of new construction going on for residential building. And at the same time, I start to see also some commercial buildings going on here in Singapore.
Yeah, so we have the commercial and also the kind of more the personal way of living. So we see cranes, we see buildings, being built in just a matter of seconds. So do you consider that the market is actually saturated?
No, I think it's completely the opposite. There is more demand of residential buildings now than the current offer. So now the prices are going to the sky, and more people are coming to Singapore. So I expect that in the next year there are going to be more residential building, more condominiums being built in Singapore, some renovation as well. I have more doubts about the commercial side of business, because as you see, more and more companies are trying to encourage the working from home. So some of the office buildings are now empty. The offer of restaurants, cafes in Singapore is huge, so maybe we'll have more in the close future, but I don't see so much demand needed. But the residential business is gonna keep growing, at least for the next 5 years for sure in Singapore. So no saturated at all.
Well, so the market growing, as you mentioned, continuously, and also the construction sector playing a huge part in the contribution to the GDP. Mm-hmm. Do you envision that there's still room for international companies to come to Singapore and explore the market?
We are here, and if more and more international companies are coming to Singapore, it's because there is good business here. I've been working in different countries, in different parts of the world, and I can tell you in Singapore, I feel that the local and international companies, they work very well together. In many of the projects, we are partners, and I see that in the next year, more and more international companies are going to come. I see people opening new showrooms here in Singapore, having new headquarters for Asia Pacific here in Singapore, and many of them are based on the building industry.
So talking about our companies that are going to come here to Singapore, or they have opportunities and room for growing a market here in Singapore. Now we're going to focus on the personal level, so the architect itself. Do you consider that the qualifications needed to become an architect in Singapore are equivalent to those in Spain? So for any Spanish architect that may be considering coming to Singapore?
Yeah, I think so. I can tell you that I'm an engineer, I'm not an architect, but yeah, they need to do their university degree in architecture. It can be, many architects working here in Singapore, they have studied in this country. Others, they have studied in Australia, in China, Hong Kong, so India. And there are some Spanish architects also that they have studied in Spain, and they are working here. A lot of architects, they also have studied in US or in Paris, in London. I know a good amount of architects here in Singapore, and the place that they have received the education or the nationality is not a big deal.
Not relevant. Okay. So with such international architects coming and working, I'm sure there's no problem at all for any Spanish architect to come here and explore Singapore. Exactly, come, we need you. And talking about more of the designs that we see, you of course you can see, but we have an amazing skyline here in the office and in all Singapore, and we see such different architectural styles. Do you think that the Spanish and Singaporean architectural designs align or differ from one another? Difficult question.
What a question.
Yeah.
If we think about the big cities, Madrid, Barcelona, and we compare to the skyline of Singapore, they have some similarities. You see the condominiums, there are some neighborhoods in Madrid that they are similar to some in Singapore, the same in Barcelona. But the big difference is the availability of land. Singapore is a small country, the majority of the construction are skyscrapers. And in Spain, you have big cities with skyscrapers, but you have a lot of places, a lot of land in the coast, inland, in the mountains with landed houses. So what we call chalets or villas in Spain. And this is not happening in Singapore. There are some landed houses, some villas, but it's a big difference between Singapore and Spain, mainly due to the limitation of land. There are some similarities. If you look at some emblematic buildings here and there, you look at Gardens by the Bay, and you compare with the Museum of Art and Science in Valencia, they have some similarities, or Henderson Waves with the airport of Barajas, they have some similarities. But every country has their heritage. You see in Singapore a lot of sub-houses, 3-story sub-houses. In Madrid and the center of Spain, you see a lot of Romanic heritage. In Barcelona, you see Gaudí. In the south of Spain, more Arabic. So everyone has a heritage, but the big cities, they are coming along very, very similar. Yeah. I would say.
Yeah, totally. So you will still feel at home in Singapore, but exploring a different kind of taste, and more Oriental or more different cultures as well. So finally, Álvaro, just to conclude this first part of the interview. So we talk about the sectors, and we talk about Singapore, we talk about Spain. But how do you think we can encourage collaboration between this sector in Singapore and in Spain?
I will start with the university, to be honest. I think that there are not that many Spanish architects working in Singapore. There are not that many Singaporean architects working in Spain. And if we start with a good collaboration between university, an exchange program between the architectural university in Spain, that they are in many different cities, and the one in Singapore, it can be a good starting point. And then it's more about getting in the same projects, in some public projects here in Singapore or in Spain, and some non-public projects as well. But if I need to give an advice, let's start with the university. Let's start with these exchange programs at the university.
Yeah, well, so let's start with universities and education, and so that Spanish architects and Singaporean architects can interchange and really understand that there's opportunities both in Spain and Singapore, and so they're both wonderful countries to live in and with wonderful opportunities in the architectural sector. So thank you so much, Álvaro, for being here, and see you in the next part of the interview.
Thank you.